name is Sheila Lamb, and I'm with the Virginia SBDC Network. For those of you that are not familiar with our organization, the Virginia Small Business Development Center is a partnership program between the U.S. Small Business Administration, George Mason University, and local host institutions throughout Virginia. With 26 locations across the Commonwealth, we provide training and technical assistance to small businesses and their local communities. Our one-on-one advising services are available at no charge. Today's webinar, Hacked Headlines, What Recent Cyber Attacks Teach Us About Small Business Security, is presented by the Virginia SBDC Network. Please join us for our next cybersecurity webinar, Lock It Down, Cybersecurity Essentials for Today's Small Business, October 16th at 12:30. I'll drop the registration link into the chat momentarily. We are recording today's presentation and it will be posted on our website, virginiasbdc.org. And also, just to let you know, due to the large number of expected participants, everyone's microphone is muted and the chat feature is turned off. But if you have questions during the presentation, you can type those into the Q&A box and we will adjust them at the end of the session. We have also enabled the live transcript function, which you can show or hide via your own meeting controls. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our presenter for today's session, Kiana Gainey. Kiana is a 20-plus year IT and cybersecurity industry veteran and has served as Chief Executive Officer for SecureTech 360, located in Springfield, Virginia, since its inception in 2010. She is also the Cyber Industry Specialist for the Virginia SBDC. Welcome, Kiana.
Thank you, Sheila, and good afternoon to everyone. We can go to the next slide. So a little bit about the agenda today. We're going to talk about some of the headline news and how it relates to small business and cybersecurity. And then we'll end with some resources and some questions. And then we'll leave some contact information if you want to dig a little deeper or need some additional assistance. We're here to help you. Next slide. A little bit about myself. I've been in the industry about 20 years. I'm a small business owner as well, and I do a lot of work with a lot of federal government contracts, but I also have a nonprofit as well. So I'm well versed on just the different threat vectors or threat attacks that small business face, as well as also understanding how some of the larger organizations put things in place to protect their infrastructure. And so I'm going to try to give you some of those tips and tricks, because sometimes it's not about having a big budget, it's about being prepared. Next slide. So again, we'll dive right in and talk about some of the recent headline examples. I know we've all had some knowledge about the CrowdStrike global outage that happened last year, but there are still effects about it happening all into 2025. There was a widespread IT disruption from every industry was impacted: airlines, hospitals, emergency services. We even saw some government agencies that use CrowdStrike, and even some larger enterprises that also impacted some of the smaller businesses that they support as well. The farmers insurance data breach, over 1 million customers were impacted by this. And this was because of a third-party vendor. And even as a small business owner, I know we use a lot of third-party applications to support our infrastructure. And so sometimes it's not necessarily a breach that happens that we're doing, but sometimes it could be some of the third parties, vendors that we're using as well. So making sure that we understand how to interact with those third-party vendors, reading the SLAs, the privacy policies, how they will deal with incidents as they come in, what will be the response mechanisms, and then also training your staff on how to deal with emergencies as they're happening. I know a lot of even our clients saw about the CrowdStrike outage, and immediately that was for something that happened on the news. It wasn't something that we were advised on prior to seeing it on the news. And so that also calls for us to do things like updating contact lists and making sure that we have the most up-to-date information to be prepared in the event that something like this happens again. And so don't think of just because you're a larger organization or a smaller organization that when things happen, there's not a way that you can put things in place to ensure that you know how to respond. Another recent headline was the chess.com user data that was exposed. Now, this is a smaller digital platform, just to give you an example. They don't have millions of customers. They support about 4,000 users. And this was just because a file transfer tool was a major vulnerability. So it was something that just data that was being transferred from one location to another. So this just gives you an example. We use file transfers all the time, right? We're always transporting data from one place to the next. So this is something that can happen to us as well. And then like the Mark and Spencer retail cyber attack. Now, this caused online disruptions. As you can imagine, anything dealing with supply chain, digital infrastructure, anything that's customer facing can also help, customers lose faith in you. Profit loss, they shared as well. So there's some things, even as a small retailer, that you can learn and see what things you can put into place that doesn't cost millions of dollars to implement, just some simple cybersecurity things that you can put into place as a preventive tool so that you don't have to be so reactive. Next slide. So some key takeaways from the headlines. I talked about this a little bit earlier. You can put things in place in your environment that you can do everything from updates, patches from your vendors as they come in. And then also you have to test some of those patches and updates. Now, in the event that you have a smaller environment, maybe you don't have the infrastructure to do any type of testing. One thing I always would suggest as a best practice, if there is a new update or patch that you feel that you don't have enough information on, there are tons of resources out there that you can research some of these patches and updates to see, what the reviews are before you implement that patch or update into your infrastructure. And if you are using third-party vendors, understand that your relationship with them also matters. So making sure you have a clear form of communication or a way to contact a help desk, an email address, some point of contact that you can get to right away if there's something that's happening in real time. And if you're using digital platforms that have maybe a smaller user base, understand that they also can be targeted as well. So making sure that you just keep your posts on what's happening within your infrastructure, or things that you're using as well. And then if something does happen, the best thing that you can do to make sure that you maintain your customers' trust is having that open line of communication so that you can make sure that the people that you're supporting, your customers, your users, if you have users that's in your infrastructure, that they understand what's happening in real time. And then if not, I always say if there's like a 72-hour window, a 24-hour, what do you do? Like what the who, what, when, and how is very important in the event that something happens, because sometimes you just can't control what's happening, but you can control how you react to what's happening. Next slide. So I know I jumped right in with some of the headlines, and you're probably saying, wow, that is a lot. I'm just a smaller small business, and I have one or two employees. I don't have all this infrastructure that she's talking about. Why does cybersecurity matter to me? Well, 43% of cyber attacks, they target small businesses. A lot of the small businesses that are under attack within 6 months, research have shown they either have some issues with staying open, and 90% of the attacks are human error. So those are things that maybe in training that we can put in place as a preventive tool. Documenting any issues as they're happening so that you can have, lessons learned, so that you can create an environment or a cyber first culture, security first culture within your organization that, employees feel comfortable with reporting things, or a way that they can report to, like the who, what, when, and how is very important. The majority of cyber criminals, they don't discriminate. They target vulnerable computer systems, regardless if it's a small company, Fortune 500, or even just a home user. They're looking for ways to, you know, to get into vulnerable computer systems. So prevention is the most cost-effective tool that you can use. It is very inexpensive compared to recovery that it would take if something happened. Next slide. So one thing as a small business owner, even if you're small or just starting out, or you're trying to put together, you're trying to navigate, like, how does this impact my small business? Understanding the risk that's within your environment is very key. If you are using an email, if you're using different applications, understanding what is a phishing attack, what happens in the event that I receive a fake email, if my employees receive a fake email, why is it important that they don't click on those links or they don't open up those attachments? Phishing attacks, that's exactly what they're looking for. They're usually fake emails. You look very close to something that you used to seeing. I like to even do, and in my staff meetings, like we'll take apart like a phishing email, and we'll look at it to see like the user it came to, like who was it assigned to? There was a sense of urgency in that email. Were they trying to, is there a different link? Did it look very close to something that we're used to seeing? Just so that we can just be in practice when those things happen of what to do in the event that something does happen. Understanding what ransomware is. If you're using, if you're processing or storing or transmitting any type of privacy information or healthcare information, if you have the capacity or capability to encrypt that data, that is one way that you can combat a ransomware attack. But just understanding what it means, what it is also crucial so that you can have an understanding of what to do in the event that something happens. And then 90% of a lot of attacks sometimes are happening in real time. It's not always something that's malicious, it has malicious intent, but it can still be considered an insider threat to your organization. So making sure that you do some type of training. There are some resources out there that are free of charge that you can use as a way to onboard some new employees or contractors that are coming within your infrastructure so they understand how to to watch out for this type of behavior, or to really just be aware of things that can happen, even if there's no malicious intent. Having weak passwords, if you have passwords, making sure that they're strong passwords, they're not easily guessed passwords, but not making them so strong that you lock yourself out or you have to write them down and forget where you put the written down password as well. So think about those things as just common cyber threats for small businesses, but things that you can do that doesn't cost anything, or sometimes it's just training your employees or even training yourself or raising your awareness about these threats. Next slide. So what recent attack shows us as a small business? Healthcare breaches are up. Sensitive data is a primary target. Ransomware on local government. No one is too small. Retail hacks, payment systems, supply chains can also be a weak point of entry. Hackers reuse the same playbook. Small businesses are often very easy targets for them. And I like to do a caveat with that as well. Hackers are also just looking for, like we discussed earlier, vulnerable computer systems. So that's irregardless of your size. What you need to know as a small business owner is to make sure that you are staying up to date with your updates, your patches, having a password policy, having an incident response plan, having, that open lines of communication, having training is very important and crucial to your small business being successful. Next slide. Again, why does this matter? Again, I keep emphasizing that even with the cyber headlines, it's not just big company problems, it's also problems for every end user, anyone that's using any type of information or applications or devices to do any type of computing, any type of business transactions. Attacks can lead to loss of revenue, your customers no longer trust you, and also costly recovery bills. The average cost of a recovery can be tens of thousands of dollars. If it's major spillages or major data breaches, they can mean millions of dollars. And, that's a lot to even think about as a small business owner. If you think about cyber security in relation to how critical it is to you to have something in place, think about it as other things that you want to secure that are very costly, that can also cause disruption or cause issues with your business being able to function. Think of cybersecurity, putting together a cybersecurity plan or prevention tools as those things that you need to protect as well. Next slide. Again, the biggest thing you can do is, implementing these preventive measures, regularly doing those software updates, patch managing, and it's like she keeps saying the same thing over and over. I'm harping on these things because these are things that are very low cost or no cost at all. It's just putting things into practice, putting a plan together, testing that plan, training your employees, putting together things like a strong password policy. And, if you have the capability or budget to do things like multi-factor authentication, using the employee training to be able to recognize phishing attempts, and having those safe data practices that we talked about earlier. In the event that you can encrypt your data both at rest or in transit, meaning if there's things that is resident to your device, if you can encrypt those. If you're sending out important information, making sure you encrypt those information as well. If you can't use encryption, there's a lot of embedded security features within some of your applications. If it's something, just putting a password on a protected file, and then sending that password in another mechanism, maybe texting the person, or using another email to send the actual password, not putting the password with the protected, document, separating those two. Those are things that are low cost and things that are no cost. But this putting those practices in place will definitely just give you some type of preventive measures. Conducting those regular security audits, penetration testing, if you have a larger budget, identifying or even bringing in a third-party cybersecurity organization to help you. If you say, this is not my landscape, this is not my wheelhouse, bringing in a consultant to help you with those will help you as well. If you have a big network, limited access to people who only need to perform certain roles within your organization. For example, if you have HR and you have accounting, if the roles for them to have access to maybe like a file structure on SharePoint, if they only need certain information to do their job, limited that access to that particular function will definitely be things that you can put into place as a preventive measure. Next slide. Again, it's very important to create those cyber first culture mindset, which is, the mindset where every employee put cybersecurity in their daily actions. It's not just an individual. It's not just the IT person or the cybersecurity person or the consultant that you're bringing in. Every employee has to play a role in keeping the infrastructure and the applications and everything that they're using in their day-to-day operations. They have to have the mindset that they need to keep it protected. It's like leaving your front door wide open, and allowing anyone to come in. You have to at least put a door there, put locks there. If you have I use a digital access for some of my office spaces, so that only limits, and the code is only given to certain people to do certain functions. So then I have a trail on who's coming in and coming out. Now, I know that that's not something that every small business, office or owner can do, but those are things that you can put into place. But those are just because I want, a mindset and to create a security first culture. I try to do things to lead by example. I harp on continuous education, just keeping cybersecurity on top of mind. I have cybersecurity training for employees as I'm onboarding them. And then I have it a part of a weekly touch point for our organization as well. We bring it up in staff meetings. I'm all constantly sending out email reminders about just to keep things, fresh and top of mind, and integrating it into your operation so that it also becomes part of your business decisions. If we're introducing a new client or a new product, one of the things that I first think about is how we introducing this into our current infrastructure, if there are any additional risks that are associated with that. So those are the things that you can do just to integrate into your business operations as well. Next slide. So top 5 security tips for small businesses. If possible, use multi-factor authentication on all accounts. If not, just make sure you have a very strong and stringent password policy that's not easily guessed. But don't make it so stringent that you can't even use it and you have to have it written down in multiple places, because that's also could be considered a security vulnerability as well. Making sure you keep your software systems updated, doing those regular updates and patches, backing up your data. One thing I will say this about backing up data, in addition to backing up your data as a great cybersecurity tip, testing those backups regularly is also very important. I have been in organizations and environments where I've seen organizations spend thousands of dollars on backing up the data, and then they've never tested any of the backups. And then when something happens and we're relying on those backups for recovery, they fail. So I want to harp, if you are backing up your data, make sure that you have a plan in place to test those backups on, a consistent basis. And then training your employees to spot things like phishing attacks or different type of scams. And then again, I talked about limiting your access, give staff only what they need to do their jobs. Next slide. So I know I covered a lot in a short period of time, but there are a lot of wonderful resources and organizations that are there to help you put together things like you're saying. She, came up with terms like a cybersecurity plan. Okay, where do I get that? How do I get started? Incident response plan. Where do I get that? Where do I get started? A password policy. Okay, I'm tracking, but how do I put that together? There are organizations like CISA that have a whole section that's designated for small businesses that need some assistance with putting together templates or deriving information. And I even get alerts from CISA about things that are happening so that I can plan appropriately as well. FTC also has a section dedicated just for small businesses. And this does a wonderful job for some framework work if you're looking to build policies and procedures. KnowBefore.com, I think I talked about this earlier about having some type of training. They have a free training tools and things that you can use in your organization that are free of charge that you can add and integrate into your own security operations as you're thinking about putting together a plan and thinking about putting a training plan together. That's a wonderful resource as well. Next slide. So some key takeaways and just some next steps. The biggest thing that you can learn from a lot of these breaches and things that we can, learn as a small business owner is just to stay alert, stay vigilant, start small, think about low cost protections that you can implement today. The biggest thing that you can do that is low cost and sometimes no cost is training, engaging your employees, find out from them what risks, are they seeing more, prevalent in their email boxes, or if they're using mobile devices, if they, hear things that's happening on the news, if they're, understanding what's going on with the headlines. Engaging your employees to find out what's going on and also be your first line of defense on as you are maturing your cybersecurity posture for your organization will definitely help you to do those updates and making sure that they're building that security first culture within your organization. Again, the biggest thing I can talk about is using those preventive measures, planning ahead, building those incident response plans before you need it, testing those plans, engaging in some type of employee training is very crucial to your survival as a small business as it relates to cybersecurity. Next slide. So again, I know today is September 11th, and it marks the anniversary of September 11th. And I know we're discussing cybersecurity and resilience, but use this time to reflect on the broader theme of being prepared, whether it's physical or digital. As a small business, like communities that thrive, we remain even when things happen. I take a moment to honor those we lost and just to recognize and just reaffirm our commitment to just security and resilience and to moving forward. And so I didn't want to leave this webinar today without recognizing September 11 as well. So next slide. So in conclusion, cybersecurity is a continuous journey. The key things you can do is staying informed, be proactive, be prepared, realize that every team member in your organization, if you only have a team of one, I've been there. I started off with just myself in my basement, and then I grew over time. And so as I brought in new team members, I understood, the roles that they would play as being a vital member in the organization to help safeguard our business. So it was very important that I poured in early so that they can understand the importance of it. And then understanding the threat landscape. I don't believe that cybersecurity has to be like this spooky boogeyman. It's really just a raising awareness about what current threats are happening. We're using technology to enhance our lives and to get our business done and to support our customers. So making sure that we just make sure that we're doing it in the most secure way is very crucial. Implementing some of those best practices that we talked about, employee training, data protection strategies, incident response, all of those things can significantly enhance your security. And then again, cultivating that security first culture also builds, long-term resilience as well. Next slide. Any questions?
We don't have any questions at the moment, so I'm gonna just put a shout out to everyone who's here with us today. If you have any questions, drop them in now and let's pick Kiana's brain. See if we can get some answers. See if we get anything. I've done a really good job covering everything.
Well, that's a good thing. So, and I just wanted to just kind of just highlight a couple of things too. As you're thinking about putting together your plan, you don't have to start so grand. I hope I was horning in on just start small, even if it's just as simple as, maybe if I'm just a one person shop, I'll invest in myself by just getting trained, getting the alerts, understanding what's happening. If I'm in an industry that is heavily regulated, understanding, all of the regulations that I need to put in as a way to be able to be, to protect the regulatory compliance portion of my business and understand how that relates to maybe some cyber things that I have to put into place. I work with a lot of heavily regulated industries like in the financial industry or healthcare where they're using a lot of sensitive information, and a lot of 9 out of 10, most of the issues can be solved with training. And training doesn't have to be something complex. It can be as small as I remember doing my first all hands with my first 5 employees, and it was just a PowerPoint presentation. And I just went through a couple of slides, just talking through all of the applications that we have at our disposal, talking about all of our customers that we support. And then I discussed, things about different cyber attacks that were happening and how it relates to us in real time. And we were able to, and it just opened up the conversation for a lot of things that I didn't even know that they may have heard or they saw on the news. And we started, being able to over time mature our training and making it almost like a water cooler conversation, that it didn't have to feel so heavy. Because sometimes cybersecurity can seem like, oh, it's just another heavy topic. And I wanted it to be very light, like it's just something that we want to integrate into our operations. It doesn't have to be something that, because we are in the cyber business, that we have to just be, so stringent to where we don't understand that certain things you need to do work. Like I didn't lock down the devices so they were so stringent that you couldn't even operate and use them. But I did put things in place to make sure that I was protecting them as they are also doing things with some of the applications that our customers have given us access to as well. So I just wanted to throw that out too.
Thank you. We've had some questions drop in. So,
Okay.
so the first question is there any tool you can suggest for small businesses with a sole owner?
I would start with low cost or no cost, not necessarily even tools, but resources. Those some of the resources that I highlighted in the presentation, like CISA has some great resources and templates that you can use. Um, there are like no4b.com also has training. I would start with training as well, just so that you can just stay abreast of what's happening. And then I would even go as far as just taking an inventory of everything that you're currently using and then just educating yourself about, what protective mechanisms you can put into place to protect yourself. That's where I would start. I wouldn't jump right into a tool.
Let's see. I'm gonna just say a reminder. I'm gonna send out these slides and this recording, so you don't have to be taking notes if you weren't on at the beginning and you missed that. But just know that you're gonna get a copy of these slides with all these great links to use. Let's see. Next question. As you're starting out, what are key considerations for software that's critical for safeguarding potential cyber threats?
As you're starting out, what key considerations for software that's critical for safeguarding potential cyber threats? So if you're just starting off, depending on what industry that you're in, understanding what the regulatory compliance for that industry will definitely be key before you jump right into software. That would be my first answer too. But there are some things that you can use like endpoint protection, antivirus. If you have some things are resident to some of the applications you use. If they have a way to use firewall or network security, if you can do some web filtering, some of the applications have ways where you can filter some of the incoming and outgoing traffic as well. If you have the ability to turn on event manager so that you can have some audit logs. Again, training and education will be very key. That's where I would start if I was a small business, as a small business owner. That's where I started.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And as a follow-up, this same attendee is asking, as you grow and scale by adding new technology tools, I mean, would you start using other avenues or?
Yes, if you have the capability to add things like a multi-factor authentication, there's some wonderful tools out there like Dual that you can use that can help you with multi-factor authentication. But again, any application or tool or resource that you use, make sure you read those privacy policies, make sure you understand, what protections that it will provide you, and make sure you educate yourself on it before you deploy any type of new application or software or anything into your environment.
Let's see, next question. With WordPress hosting for a website, is there a hosting provider that you think has better security features for their customers?
So I think 9 out of 10 of most of the web hosting that's out there now, they have done a great job by adding additional security tools within the web hosting platform. I've heard, there's pros and cons to all of them, right? But for me, if you have to look at costs, then you have to look at your budget, and then you have to look at what for your money that you're going to get from using those residence tools that's within the hosting environment that you're using. And then I would also read the reviews. Now, I'm a review person. If before I purchase anything, or I'll do my research and then I'll read the reviews to see about other folks that have used it in the past. But I haven't heard. I don't have one over the other. I would say do your research and look at the ones that's going to be more suitable for your small business.
Next question. What is the major reason that we need to change our password every certain time? Or I guess it's, yeah.
Yes. One of the major reasons why it's very important to change your password is because there are a lot of threat actors out there that are very using a lot of sophisticated tools that use things like brute force attacks, to be able to manipulate, I don't want to say use word, but be able to bypass a lot of security embedded features, and they can see if you're using a password that can be easily guessed, they'll use like a combination of different things, and they'll able to utilize that as a way to exploit how to get into a particular organization. So that's why it's important to change your passwords regularly and to make it a very strong password, because usually ones that are very easy to guess, it takes minutes for a sophisticated, or not sometimes even not a sophisticated hacker, anyone that has the right tools to be able to get in to circumvent the system.
Next question, can you speak more on email and cybersecurity?
Yes. So email and cybersecurity, what couple things that you can use there is, again, multi-factor authentication. There are a lot of third-party applications that you can use to give you that extra layer of security. That is one of the most effective protections that's in the marketplace right now. But then again, there are things that you can do. I think we talked about this a little bit earlier. You can encrypt some of your data. That's data that's traveling between servers to make sure that they're protected. You can implement that as well. You can do, and you can encrypt even if your data is at rest, which will give you that end-to-end for any like highly sensitive content that you're passing through. There are a lot of filtering and secure gateways that you can use. You can also implement some scanning tools to be able to scan emails as they come. So it's a lot of things that you can use. But one thing I would say, start with your employee training. Start with, implementing the email policy. The email policy should state what is allowed, what is considered sensitive, how to handle certain things. And then if you have the capability to monitor, as things are coming in, so that you can understand if there's some unusual access or patterns that you're trying to document. And then develop response plans when something happens, what to do, so that you can have something in place. So prevention is going to be very key with any of the technologies or any of the devices or applications or third-party applications that you use to secure your small business.
There's one last question. I'm not sure if you can answer it, but the
Okay.
question is, are there government grants that are available with the big, beautiful bill that can help pay for cybersecurity posture for healthcare companies?
Great question. Not sure if I'm qualified to answer that. There's no government grants that I know about. Even without the big beautiful bill, there's no government grants that I know about that will help pay for your cybersecurity posture as a healthcare company. However, some of the resources and agencies that I listed in the slides, and we'll send out like a one-pager as well, they have a lot of free or low cost resources that you can use as a small business to be able to help you understand the regulations when you're dealing with healthcare data, how to protect it, what protection, HIPAA, how to do, everything from, HIPAA and high tech and all those different regulations that you have to adhere to as a healthcare provider. But I would start there first. And I think that would at least give you just the first steps. Because the biggest thing is sometimes is not doing anything, but starting somewhere, right? And so start with those resources, and I think that will help you be able to develop a healthy posture for your organization.
That is all the questions that we have, Kiana.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I want to thank everyone who attended today. And Kiana, I also want to thank you for remembering September 11th, because I know it's heavy on all our minds today. So thank you for that. Again, as a reminder, you will receive an email with a link to this recording and the slides, and then an extra resource sheet that Kiana is going to provide to us. And if you could help us as you exit this webinar, you'll see a short survey pop up. If you could just fill that out, that just helps us moving forward with presenting you with the webinars that most interest you. If you would like to sign up for upcoming webinars or access recorded webinars, please visit virginiasbdc.org/training. These resources are to be used in collaboration with your local SBDC advisors. You can sign up for a free and confidential session by emailing help@virginiasbdc.org or via our website. And we do hope to see you all at our next session. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.